So last night things popped off, and I don't mean popped off in the kind of positive way. So I was tweeting and everything, and late last night guys were like, "Bro, have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard?" I was like, "Have I heard what? Have I heard what?" Apparently things popped off during a Twitter space involving journalist Romain Molina, who is a French journalist that works for, I think, The Guardian and New York Times. And I have to stress this. I have to stress this because this happened with the situation with the PSG women's team. These are allegations. I will stress that again, and I'll say it so many times that you actually find annoying. These are allegations. These are allegations. These are allegations. These are allegations. We don't know whether this stuff is true. We don't know whether this stuff is true because some of the stuff he said is shocking. It's shocking. I mean, with stories of rape, stories of abortion, stories of corruption, stories of coercion, and so forth. Some of this stuff is wild. Because I wanted to say something, but let me just some of the stuff that he said. So this is apparently from, I think a guy just paraphrased it. This is Romain Molina. I could write a whole book about PSG and Nasser. Their corruption and bad deeds are something invisible. Soon people will know more about the dark institution of PSG under Nasser's leadership. Terrorist organizations have a say in what is happening at PSG. That's real. But I'll come to that there. But that's real. When you just look at just some of the stuff that this guy is saying, man. I mean, stuff about minors being raped and so forth. All this stuff, this is all, see, for me, when stuff like this is so extreme, I'm a truth merchant. And I think this is the issue we have in this world. It's similar to the Me Too movement. Because what you have in the Me Too movement is you are guilty before you're proven innocent. Now, I grew up in a world where you are innocent until proven guilty. You're not guilty because, surely, no. Surely isn't enough to convict someone. You have to have evidence, and so much overwhelming evidence. That's why when you're in the courts of law, prove beyond a reasonable doubt. I believe OJ committed that crime. I believe so. But that isn't enough to convict a man. And the issue is because the prosecution were bricks, and because Johnny Cochran was tier 1, they couldn't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was guilty of those crimes. So when you're making these allegations and so forth that Mr. Molina is making, it has to be like, bro, where is your evidence? And the issue that people have is that because it's so extreme, and we live in a world where people want to believe the extreme, they're like, oh, surely it must be true. So the key thing I've got to keep on stressing this is that evidence. That's the key thing. So I want to put that out there just as a precursor. Terrorist organizations involved in PSG. I have no evidence. If it was proven true, now listen to me very closely. If it was proven true that terrorist organizations have a say in what PSG do, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying that I know. What am I? I'm just a dude that plays Nintendo Switch, freaking PS4, that brick has FIFA 22, and I just talk about football to a screen and films and so forth. I'm a simple man. I have zero connections, bro. So I'm you. I'm a man from the freaking road. I'm you. I'm not a high journalist. I'm just a regular guy who loves, bleeds for football and so forth. So I'm just a regular football fan. So just as a regular guy, looking at the dots and so forth and seeing things, if it was proven, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, what is? I just wouldn't be shocked, and I will leave it there. I will not go any further. All I'm saying is I wouldn't be shocked. Full stop. And I will leave it there. You see, now, I Googled this Romain Molina guy. And he is associated. So he's 30 years old, and he's associated with the Guardian and New York Times because it's very key. I'm like, okay, who is saying this stuff? And when this was given to me, guys said, no, this guy is a very reputable dude. I'm like, okay. So once you're not aligning with the New York Times and Guardian, okay, now that's real. Again, I told you guys, like, for a time I worked for a news agency, and news agency, they pride themselves. Their lifeblood is on their reputation. Because once you put out a false story that's crap, that can destroy your reputation. So the key thing is this, the Guardian, and again, as I told you, I live in many places, but when I lived in England, the Guardian is not the Daily Mail. The Guardian, the Telegraph, these are reputable organizations. See, the Daily Mail is what you use to wipe up your ass with. Basically, if you're running out of toilet paper, you use the Daily Mail or Daily Mirror to wipe your ass with. That's like extra tissue paper. Telegraph, the Guardian, that's like, okay, these are the top reputable organizations. They can still get it wrong. Everyone can get it wrong, but they are seen as reputable. Bro, we're in the New York Times. I mean, my American dudes, what up? New York Times ain't TMZ. Okay, New York Times ain't Paris Hilton. That's like, reputable organization. So it's interesting that he's come out and saying this stuff, and I think why you have, see, if it's just a guy from the road, some to do them, guys are like, whatever. The reason why I think this is getting so much traction is because he is a reputable journalist, because he is linked in with these guys. It doesn't mean it's true. It came there. All because you are linked with a reputable organization doesn't mean that what you're saying is true. But you have to pause for thought. If it was a guy from the road saying this, man, the heck out of it. I don't even be doing this video. The reason I'm doing this video is, this guy's linked with the Guardian and New York Times. And here's the thing. So this is where things get a bit tricky. Because I've got to pick my words very carefully here. Football is the biggest sport in the world. It's the biggest sport in the world. It's the biggest sport in the world. There's a lot of money in football. You go through the history of humanity. Whether you want to look at boxing, whether you want to look at the church. Back when the church was the state and the church right next to one another. Hollywood. Big organizations where big money is being made. Because my thing is that I believe in using logic and a pattern. Because I told you, one of the best books you've ever read, I'll recommend to you guys this book called The Prince by Machiavelli. And the interesting about the book is how it's like things that humanity do, it repeats itself again and again and again. And the stuff that he's saying there and so forth, again, similar to the PhD thing, if it was revealed to be true, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. If, let's say, he had evidence and this stuff was true, because we don't know whether it's true, which we just don't know, I wouldn't be shocked. Because when there is so much money and so much power with such a powerful organization like UEFA, FIFA, and so forth, things can happen. Weird things can happen. And we've seen it with boxing. We've seen it with the church. And the kinds of things that have happened in the church with priests and altar boys and so forth. We don't need to get into any details because I won't. We're not going into any details. Do your Googles. So what's going to be interesting is what's the next step right now. But I'll leave it with this because we're definitely going to talk more about this thing on the Hangouts, live shows, and so forth. But the thing though is, football is going to a very, very interesting place. And I think Perez, again, Papa Perez, he said something. Perez said, so you guys, don't hate on Perez. Don't hate on Perez. Perez said that, Florentino Perez said that very soon, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, most of football will be owned by countries and nations. Football will be owned by countries. See, it's only happening. PSG, Newcastle, man. Just very slowly. Look left, look right. Most of football will be owned by nations and countries. So the way football will operate and so forth will be totally different. And again, what's happening to football is similar to what happened to boxing. Because as boxing was getting big, you had the mafia. You had betting guys involved, organizations involved, shady deals, corruption. Anytime an institution gets big, gets massive, where exorbitant amounts of money is being made, and the key thing, there is a massive demand for it, as it was for boxing in its heyday during the 60s, 70s, 80s, and so forth, and early 90s, corruption will be rife. And the way it is being run, there'll just be a lot of dodgy stuff attached to it. So let's see where the story goes, and because Molina, I'm just saying, bro, Molina, you've put your neck out. You're putting yourself out there, bro. Let's just watch what happens over the next few days. Let's watch what happens over the next few days. If you knock on our hornet's nest, man, you might get stung. We'll talk.